All my films get talked about 30 years later. I swear, that's just the way it goes.
Because you're a legend.
Well, I don't know about that, but the fact is they didn't do shit when they were released, and now all of a sudden everybody likes them.
You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where we hold the space for successful women in Hollywood to tell their stories. In this episode, I got to meet Penelope Spheeris. You probably know her as the director of Wayne's World, or The Decline of Western Civilization, or any of her other 32 directing credits, or producing, acting, writing, or cinematography credits. She is an artist, a badass, and she's delicious. You can find us at theother50%.com, all spelled out, and you can also go there to buy the Other 50% swag, like the stainless steel coffee mug for your car while you listen to the podcast. You could be very meta. You can also find us on iTunes, Facebook, and on Twitter at Other50%. And now for a masterclass on life. It is a grown-up talk with some grown-up words. You have been warned. Here, have a listen. So can you take us back to the beginning? How did you start? How did you get in this business in the first place?
I was studying art at Long Beach State College long about the same time Steven Spielberg went there. I don't know what he was studying because there was no film schools at that time. So I didn't really like hanging out with the art kids, you know, and it's all about who you know and who you hang out with when you're that age. So, because I felt like they were a bunch of posers. So I kind of swung the other direction and met this really fantastic professor in the biological sciences department. His name was Dr. George Falcon. And I fell in love with behavioral science. And I wanted to study human behavior. And then he told me about a school at University of Irvine that just opened. And I'm like, okay, I'm going there and I'm going to learn everything that, you know, Skinner and all the behavioral scientists were studying. Pavlov, etc. So I was there, and one day, a guy who's still a director today, Bill Norton, was a friend of mine, and he said, you know, I'm going to leave this school and I'm going to go to a film school at UCLA. And I'm like, really? They have a school where they could teach you film? So I actually kind of like the guy, you know. So
I'll follow you anywhere.
Yeah, right. I'll follow him over to that film school. So I did, and met his, a fiance at that point, which was kind of a bummer.
Oh yeah,
but
that ruins the whole thing.
Yeah, I know, right? But at least I was at the film school. Mm-hmm. So I went to film school at UCLA, and I stayed there really much longer than I was supposed to because I knew when I left I wasn't going to have any film equipment. I was the first woman to work in the what they call the tech office, which is the place that handed out all the equipment for the students. And so I got to learn all the equipment at that time, how to work it, and show other students how to work it. And
then you got to use it.
And then I checked it out when it was available. And it was funny because lately, this great guy over at the Academy of Motion Pictures Archive, Mark Toscano is his name. He called me and he said, "Do you know I've been going around to various vaults, and I've noticed that you've got some old films in there." And I said, I do? And I mean, we're talking, what are we talking, 40 years?
Like student films?
Yeah, student films from UCLA. So the Academy Archive found these films, and they made a program out of them. It's 88 minutes long. And I think they called it the early work of Penelope Spheeris. So it's 7 or 8 movies. It's really
fun.
I couldn't believe they found it. I couldn't believe they restored it and made a program out of it. They show it at the museums, and, you know, like it was in Finland and at the Tate in London, and yeah.
That's so great.
I know. I was very flattered that Mark did that.
Yeah, where did they find them?
I don't know, various places. Like I said, you know, film anymore is sort of like taking up too much space, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like the labs are going, if you want this or if you own it, please get rid of it. So they would call me and say, we found this movie that you made, you know, in 1970, and it's called Shit. Do you want us to keep it or not? And I'm like, oh, that sounds like me in 1970. Sure, keep it. Take it. And then, you know, I did another one called I Don't Know, and another one called Hats Off to Hollywood. Both of those last two were about the transgender people that I knew back then.
In the 70s?
Yeah, you know, that were my, like, closest friends. So I have these pretty clear documents of what being a transgender was back in 1971, yeah.
Well, you were ahead of your time.
That's always been my problem, that I'm ahead of my time, because when I make a movie, it usually doesn't get any release. It gets a bunch of bad reviews, and then nobody ever hears about it for 30 years, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to see it and give it good reviews. So I don't know what's going on.
That's the life of a true artist.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, let's say that.
Thank you. That's kind of you to say so. I'm just like, maybe after I'm dead, people go, oh, she was pretty cool. I don't know.
You'd be like, great, thanks. Now, what was the first film you did after you got out of school?
First film I did after school, like feature film, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, let me back up a minute. How many women were in your film school program?
In the film school at UCLA, how many women? Oh, there was this fabulous woman named Chick Strand, who was a little bit older than the rest of us. And then there was Donna Deach, and she's still a filmmaker today. And I think that was about it. They just restored some of Chick Strand's films. They were art films. It was the time of experimental art, and film. And so it was a time where, the film was so slow in terms of response to light that, whatever you could get on film was just spectacular. Oh my gosh, we actually shot a concert.
We got an exposure.
We got an exposure. We have a brilliant piece of art here. And it's funny because a few years ago I got a call from the Skirball Center, and they were screening a film that Bob Dylan, I think the only film that Bob Dylan ever directed. It's called Eat the Document. And they said, we can't get Bob to come down here and do the Q&A for this, so would you do it? I said, well, I saw it years and years ago. I was one of the 3 people that saw it, but, let me take a look at it and I'll answer you. And when I looked at it back in the 70s, like I said, it was like, we got an exposure. Anything, it didn't make any sense at all. The film didn't make any sense. Maybe to Bob it did, who's brilliant, but it didn't make sense to me or anybody that saw it in the audience, but that was just the way it was back then. We just shot everything.
That's great. Now, did you start out doing documentaries?
Let me think. The student films I did were kind of a hybrid between, I don't know, I think I might have had a couple of the first mockumentaries, because they were hybrid between documentary and scripted. Uh-huh. And I did one called the National Rehabilitation Center, and then I did, and then the ones with the transgender friends of mine were very much based in reality and looked as if it was a documentary, but I told them what to say. So yeah, there were those films, and then I knew Lorne Michaels back then because a friend of mine introduced me to him, and Lorne hadn't started Saturday Night Live yet, and I remember him actually sitting in my living room with a newspaper. I was making an omelet for him. Gosh, we were cute back then, all of us. Anyway, sitting there with the newspaper, he says, you make the best omelet, Penelope, of anyone I've ever known, and probably the only one he ever knew that made an omelet. But he said, if you want to come to New York, I'm thinking about doing a show, probably a late night kind of thing on Saturday night, could be live even, It's like, he was telling me he was going to make Saturday Night Live.
I wonder if that'll work.
I wonder if he didn't know if it was going to work or not. And he asked me to go there to help him on that show. And I said no, because I just had I had a young daughter, Anna, I still have a daughter. She's just not young anymore. But I said, no, I'm going to stay here in LA. He goes, well, if I ever need any work out there, I will let you know. And I said, fine. So he called me up one day and he goes, I found this brilliant comedian and I want you to help him make some short films for Saturday Night Live. And I said, well, okay. Who is it? He said, Albert Brooks. So he said, but he doesn't know anything about making movies. So can you show him how to make movies? And I said, sure, I'll do anything for a gig. And that's the definition, by the way, of my career. I would do anything just to make a living,
I'll do anything for a gig. That'll be the tweetable when we put this out.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, because that was, women just didn't work in the business back then, But anyway, so I showed Albert how to make movies, and he taught me a little bit about funny. And He taught me a lot about fun. He taught me a lot about Hollywood. Before I worked with Albert Brooks, I worked with Richard Pryor as well. I spent 2 years in the same room with Richard Pryor. And that was
an education.
That was an education in a lot of different ways, yeah. So I was on my way to being a producer, because when I was working with Albert, even though I was showing him where to put the camera, what lens to use, and everything else, it never occurred to me that I could be a director, because women just weren't directors back then.
Right.
And like
they barely are now.
Exactly. It's pathetic. And
so how'd you become a director?
Well, it was actually as a result of being a producer with Albert, because there was a point at which I said, what the hell am I doing? I know how to do this. Why don't I be the director and let somebody else... Can I swear on this show?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll let somebody else be the asshole producer, because when you're a producer, you have to be an asshole. You have to go and grind people for money and take back stuff you said you would give them. And it's just it wasn't my personality, And I had all the technical background. I was a technical whiz at that point,
So why not?
And so I decided, that I was going to try to direct. And it was funny because we had just done this feature called Real Life that I produced that for Albert. And I had met all of his Hollywood friends, like Rob Reiner and Billy Crystal and James Brooks and...
that whole gang.
That gang, Penny Marshall from back then. I met all those people, and they were sweet and great, wonderful, fun people. And they all laughed their ass off when I told them that I was going to go make a punk rock movie, because they're like, oh, that's so, really ridiculous. You could go get a real job. So I did The Decline of Western Civilization, even though all my friends were laughing at me. It was a documentary about punk rock, yeah.
And that became a big thing, didn't it?
Well, it became a big thing, very surprisingly so, because, it was the most written about film of 1980 when it was released, because people didn't know what it was, people didn't know what punk rock was. They were intimidated by it and,
Probably scared of it.
Very afraid of it, yes. And people, the trailer, it was kind of a joke at the time, but it says, see the movie so you won't get hurt. You don't have to go to the concerts, So, yeah, so I did that documentary, and actually kind of put me on the map as a director.
So that got you in?
It got me into, what shall I say, documentaries, but what I was explained back then by these two twin brothers called the Mann brothers that owned most of the theaters in Los Angeles, Mann's Chinese and all that. Those guys who I couldn't tell them apart, I don't know which one I was talking to, but he said, he goes, if you want to make a real movie about punk rock, you like this punk rock thing, you're not going to get it into theaters if it's a documentary. You're going to have to write a script and make it a narrative piece. So that's when I wrote Suburbia about punk rock. Yeah.
And then how did that do?
Not very well. None of my movies have done very well except for Wayne's World. A couple of them. Wayne's World, Little Rascals, Black Sheep, Beverly Hillbillies, sort of. Most of the time they just bomb. But
you got a lot of studio movies.
Yeah, I did a lot of studio movies. Once I did Wayne's World, that everybody wanted me to direct. There's funny studio movies. See, it's not my first choice to have been a comedy director. I really didn't want to do that. But once I did Wayne's World, as a woman especially, you can't change genres. I was just talking to Maxwell Caulfield today, and he goes, it's just like with an actor. Once you get established as a comedian, you can't go and do something else. An actor has a huge range if they're a great actor, And if a person is a good director, they should have a good range. They should be able to do different things. But men, I think, can do that. Men have a little more. Men have an amazing amount of more freedom than women do in this business on all levels, so that they're able to if Oliver Stone does Platoon and then he wants to do a comedy, he can do that, but if I do Wayne's World and then I want to go do one of the 5 scripts I had written by then, there's no way that I can get that done.
But it's so funny for you to be pigeonholed as a female comedy director. Mm-hmm. Makes you a unicorn.
Yeah, especially after I did The Decline of Western Civilization, Suburbia, and The Boys Next Door, which is a very, it's about serial killers. I mean, I would never make that movie today because it's too much like real life, but, and I don't want to perpetuate the violence, but back then, I mean, it was a damn good movie way back then, that I would like to have done more movies that were just, I don't know, more serious. I'm a serious person. I don't think of myself as being funny, okay? But I can somehow do comedy, I mean, and if you get to know the really good comedians like, Albert Brooks and Richard Pryor and so many, and Mike Myers that I've worked with. I've worked with DeVito and Lily and blah, blah, blah. I've worked with so many of them. And if you know them, they know the dark side. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes it funny.
Right.
Because they pull themselves out of the dark side. So I guess that's what I do too. I don't know. But I would, point being, I'm not, I don't want to be perceived as complaining or disheartened over my career because I feel grateful for it. But I wish I could have made the movies I really wanted to make,
What are the movies you really wanted to make?
Oh, gosh. I have a stack of scripts that I could never get going. I've got one called Love Above the Strip. I've got one called Alien Souvenir. I'm going to give you all my titles, which then somebody will steal them, and I really won't be able to get them done. But I have a lot of scripts that, if I felt like going out on a limb today, I could probably get them financed and make no money on them, like, and then, 30 years from now, people would love it. I'll be dead. It's the way that goes. So forget it.
Forget the whole thing. The part of the thing I'm really having trouble getting over is because I know so many women right now are trying so hard to be comedy directors and can't get in to save their lives and trying to get their next studio film or their first studio film after doing a bunch of independent films and can't get there no matter how hard they're trying. Can you put your finger on
that's two
what
different
got you in
things
there?
here. The comedy thing, see, I always like to quote Woody Allen here because even though I'm not 1,000% fan, I like
He's
a lot.
Flawed.
Yeah, a taste, yes. But he said at one point that I recall that either you're funny or you're not. And I think he was referring to an actor, you know what I mean? Like, I know when I'm casting, if I sit in a room opposite an actor, they walk in the door, they sit down, they say 3 words, I know if they're funny or not. I can just tell. Yeah. It's some instinct. And it's not like something they can change about themselves. If they're not funny, they're not going to... Trying doesn't help.
No,
they're just
it makes
not,
it worse.
It makes it worse,
Yeah.
So, as for a woman or for anybody to think, I want to be a comedy director, I think you have to ask yourself, am I really funny? Do I really understand comedy? And can I make it work? Because honestly, having done so many different genres, I'll have to say that I think comedy is probably the toughest.
Yeah.
So, and as far as, young women now trying, having made one feature and then trying to, do what guys do, which is make another one and have a career and keep on going and join the boys club and have a life. I feel extremely saddened by the fact that it's so difficult for them these days. And I don't know what to... I mean, look, if I knew how to fix that, I would. I would just spend my time trying to help people do that. But I don't know how to fix that, because now we're living in a morphing landscape of digital confusion, So every time you turn around, you think you got it figured out, God drops another digital bomb, and so...
And it's all different.
Yeah, and it almost makes me think that this one boyfriend I had years ago was right when he called me the waitress that got lucky, because I was a waitress at IHOP and Denny's before I put myself through school.
Yeah.
And he called me the waitress that got lucky, because I think there is a certain amount of luck. And also, I think if there's any kind of a clue that I could give young women filmmakers, it would be that if you try so hard and want it so much, you almost build a wall, and it can't get to you. You can't get it done. So I never did that. I never went, oh, I've got to be a director. I never did that. I just went, oh, I've got to keep the lights on. That's all I did. And I know this film shit here, so maybe I could do some film stuff and keep the lights on, I never went, oh my God, I've got to become a millionaire and people have to love me after I'm dead and think about me as being so cool. I never did that.
You're very practical.
Oh yeah. I come from a trailer park where there were 4 kids in a 25-foot trailer and 7 stepfathers over the years. I never asked or expected any kind of, bonuses here or luxury or, I'm basics, I'm proud of it too, Yeah, I am un-Kardashian, let's put it that way.
You're not entitled.
No, and honestly, there's not a lot that pisses me off at this age, but the entitlement thing, it really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why. I guess because I'm proud that I don't think that way,
Well, there's something to be said for working your ass off and making it happen.
Well, yeah, I get a lot of people that reach out to me, a lot of women, guys too, though, and they want to know, how did you do it, My first answer is, if I told you, it wouldn't make any difference, because it's so different now. What I did, it doesn't even apply, you know what I mean?
How has the business changed since you've been in it? What have you seen?
Well, the business has changed in, let's put it this way. This will just cut right to the chase. I was paid $2.75 million for doing a movie called Black Sheep at Paramount. I was offered $100,000, between $50,000 and $100,000 to do a $2 million movie the other day.
Huh.
Okay. So, that's the hardcore money aspect of it.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, there's so many people that want to be directors. I just go get somebody that really needs to make that $50,000.
Someone's gonna take it.
Hell yeah. They'll do it for free.
Yeah.
They'll pay to play. Yeah. So wow. That's a major reason how the business has changed. Mm-hmm. But that's the money part. I think the digital technology and the availability of instant, endless information has made it so that our whole common consciousness is unfocused. You can go find a movie on anything on any subject you want, or 10 movies, and probably none of them are any good. Mm-hmm. I think the quality of the films has deteriorated greatly, just because of the amount of films being made, And I'm sure you've heard this one before, but I'll say it again. The good news is everybody can make a movie, and the bad news is everybody can make a movie.
Now, you also did television. Do you Roseanne?
I was a story editor on Roseanne for one season. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Now, how did you flip into that job?
Oh, there was this wonderful woman named Arlene Rothberg. And I can't even remember how I met her. So funny, because there's so many people along the way that, even though I'm not all that religious, although I should be, God throw them in my path, and I'm like, geez, thanks. I don't know how I met her. Anyway, she was cool, and she knew my work, my various films I had done up until Wayne's World. She knew all that. Wayne's World was my 7th movie. And she said to me, "You're extremely talented." And she was a music manager. She managed Carly Simon. I don't know how the hell I met her, like I said, but she was fantastic. She taught me so much about the business. Arlene did. One of her great lines was, I said, "Do you think we should go to this such and such a party? Maybe I could get a job if I went there." And she just looked at me. She was so funny. And she just goes, "When the hell did you ever get a job from going to a party?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you're right." And I never have to this day, by the way. So forget the parties, kids.
People think, though, that they are going to get a job.
Yeah, they go schmoozing, kiss ass and everything, that they're going to get a job. They just want to party. Forget it. They're not going to get a job doing that. Arlene said to me that I needed to switch agents, and that she knew that there was an opening over at Roseanne for writing staff, and so she got me a gig over there as story editor. And
but had you written before that?
Well, I'd written Suburbia, and
so you'd written your films,
but I hadn't written any television. But somehow she knew Roseanne, and she convinced Roseanne I would be really great on the show. Edgy person. I was the edgy person they needed. Like Roseanne wasn't edgy enough. Anyway, so I did one season over there, total nightmare. And
can I ask what was a nightmare about it?
Saturday Night Live was extremely competitive. And I just got back from New York. Every time I go to New York, I get these pangs of fear in my stomach, because whenever I would go there for Saturday Night Live, to be in a room with Lorne and his staff, or writing staff and actors and all that, same thing. He sets it up so that they compete like in a cutthroat way. Okay. And it's almost like siblings that fight or something to make the dad happy.
Yeah.
And so it was the same on Roseanne. And it was very, very competitive. The first day I was there, the producer was taking me down the hallway to show me where my little cubbyhole of an office would be, and I was stepping over a broken computer and chair and desk and everything. I'm like, what happened here? Looks like an earthquake. What happened here? Oh, a couple of the writers were pissed that you were being hired, so they just broke shit.
What?
Yeah, Roseanne was tough.
Why would they be mad that you were hired?
I don't know, because they needed something to be mad about, because there was so much tension there. But that, again, somehow out of that comes the funny, okay?
Yeah.
And you just have to make your way through it. And I've never really been very good at TV. I've done little bits and pieces of TV, of TV along the way. But I'm not really good at TV, which kind of sucks right now, because that's what everybody is doing.
That's the place to be, yeah.
Yeah.
So at some point, were you married and had a daughter?
No, I didn't get married. I don't think I would do that. My mom was married 9 times, so to me, marriage... Woo! Yeah, she was hot. To me, marriage didn't mean anything, My daughter, her father, I met him when I was working at IHOP over on Sunset and Orange. I spilled some blueberry syrup on... I think he was wearing a tablecloth or something. It was like some drapey thing. Cutest guy in the world. Bobby, and luckily I spilled some blueberry syrup on his hippie garb and got his phone number so I could get the thing cleaned for him or something. And so that we were together for 6 years. He died in 1974 from a heroin overdose.
Oh God.
My daughter was 4 years old at the time. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's awful.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I've had a few of those in my life, and I mean, not boyfriends, but just close family, and it is really tough. Yeah, yeah. So no, I never got married, but I had a few boyfriends over the years. Last one's been the longest one, 18 years. I met him on Decline 3.
Holy crap!
I know.
It's 100 years in Hollywood.
Totally, huh?
Yeah, good job.
I know. I was just with Juliet Mills and Maxwell, as I mentioned this morning, Maxwell Caulfield. And 1984, he was in Boys Next Door. And I think they just got married right then. So I looked at them. I said, you know what, you guys, back then, when you guys said you were going to get married, I never thought it would last. And I can't do the math right now, but it's been 30 or 40 years that they've been together.
Wow, good for them.
That's a life. I mean, that's like, a millennium in Hollywood years.
Oh,
so 18 years for me, yeah.
Yeah, good. How was it for you raising your daughter and being in this crazy business? How did you work that out?
I know, right? Well, I was told I was working with Richard Pryor in 1969.
As you do.
Yeah, and Richard was doing this movie. He was directing and writing it and starring in it, and I was producing it for him. And one day I fainted on the set, and when I woke up, I looked up, and Richard was standing there. He was wearing a white, it's freaky, white outfit, long white pimp coat, and a big white pimp hat. And he looked down and he goes, "This bitch is pregnant." And I'm like, "Oh, stop it, Richard. I'm just a little lightheaded. I'm not pregnant." But Richard was psychic. Richard Pryor told me I was pregnant.
How did he know?
Because he's psychic. I mean, I didn't even know.
Was he literally psychic?
Yes. Richard Pryor was definitely psychic.
Tell me more.
Well, I mean, I don't remember any specific, things, but it was just common knowledge. I was with him in the same house for 2 years as we were working on that movie, and so many times. Sometimes he was wrong. I mean, like he would go to the airport to catch a plane, and me and his wife at the time would still be there. I'd be working on the movie, and he'd come back, and I'm like, "Well, what happened? I thought you were going to get on a plane to wherever." And he goes, "No, that one's going to crash. I'm not going on that one." So sometimes he was wrong, but a lot of.
But that feeling you got to honor sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of extrasensory perception, as it were.
So then you had your baby.
Yeah.
Did you just keep working with her in the pouch?
The reason I was, the thing is with Anna, I mean, I knew film and I knew waitress. I knew how to be a waitress. Mm-hmm. Okay, those are the two things I knew how to do. And whatever film job I could get, I would take, and I started a film company called Rock and Reel where I made music videos. I think I had the first music video company in Los Angeles. And it actually turned out to be kind of lucrative because I was the only one.
Yeah. And was that before MTV or was it?
Yeah, way before MTV. And
whose videos did you do?
Which bands?
Yeah.
Oh, like let's see, what was the very first one? It was this girl named Shy Coltrane from CBS, and she was somehow related to John Coltrane. It was mostly just performance videos at the time, it was not high concept videos. I did the Doobie Brothers, Fleetwood Mac, Funkadelic, Gary Wright. It was freaky because when I got the Wayne's World script, the Dreamweaver song was in there, and I'm like, "Hey man, I did that video." But yeah, I did really a lot of Curtis Mayfield, a lot of bands, Staple Singers, Seals and Crofts. Go on for days.
But so was that your bread and butter job?
That was my bread and butter job, and I had the equipment checked out so I could go film the bands for the record companies. And then when I stumbled upon punk rock, I had 2 Eclair cameras or 2 Aeroflex cameras at home, and and some sound equipment. So why don't I just go and shoot? Because I can't turn it in until Monday morning. So I'll go out on Saturday night and film the germs. So I
might as well.
Might as well. So yeah, that's how that happened. But as far as having a daughter, it's like when I was making those music videos. I mean, I really literally couldn't afford a babysitter for too long. And I remember one time we were down at this place on Highland called Editel, and I'd have to edit all night long. That's when we got the good prices, And so my babysitter brought my 5-year-old daughter down because I still had to work all night, and she slept on the couch there while we edited. And I was so tired in the morning. The people had all gone, and they said, just shut the doors when you leave. And so we did, and the alarm came on, and I went, oh my God, I forgot my daughter inside. But
that's awkward.
Yeah, I know. You call the cops. I left my kid inside. Sorry, man. But there were things like that, where having and then plus I would bring her everywhere. I mean, her joke is she would take me to punk rock shows when she had to film, and just tell the cameraman just shoot around the kid on the stage. She put me right up on the stage because she thought that was safe.
Did she end up in the business?
Actually, she was really close to being the director for that movie American Pie, which I'm so glad she wasn't. But she went to AFI and didn't get the gig to do American Pie, but found out that good thing because she was pregnant at the time. So she's had 3 kids since then, and they're fabulous kids. And her son is an amazing drummer, and her daughter's a beautiful artist, and her other daughter, we call the other daughter the black sheep because she's a cheerleader. It's like the Addams family, and then like the cheerleader is the weird one.
It's like the rock and roll family.
It is totally the rock. My daughter's husband of 20 years is in the band The Cult. So he's on tour all the time. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Have you been political through your career?
Political? You mean active out protesting in the street? Or see, here's the thing. I've watched every single episode since it began of 60 Minutes. So I don't watch anything except the news and a couple cooking shows. Anything else to me is a bunch of trash.
Wow.
I mean, everybody, I certainly wouldn't watch any American Idol or Voice or any of that stuff. I have no interest in it. Jeopardy, maybe Jeopardy, because my boyfriend gets every answer right on Jeopardy. So Jeopardy, 60 Minutes, and Chopped. Those are my shows.
Yeah.
So am I political? I know everything that's going. What a stupid statement. I was going to say I'm very aware every day of what's going on locally and internationally, and it's what interests me. I don't really have any interest in Rams football. Hey, I'm sorry, guys. I know a lot of people do, and they're great. Fine, okay. I don't have a favorite baseball team. I don't do sports. I don't do game shows. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm strictly hardcore news. Is that political? I mean, I have a lot of political views. I got mad at my grandson and my granddaughter for going on those protests because I know how violent they can get.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's scary.
Were they going last week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have blisters the size of Buicks on their feet from marching, you know? Anyway, political in what way?
Well, originally I was thinking when the DGA had that big push to get women in the early 90s, like the original 6.
Oh, is that why I got into the Directors Guild? No, I got into the...
I don't know. What's it?
I think that, you know what, I did Wayne's World in 1990, and I was asked at that point by Bob Ramey, who was the head of the Academy, to join the Academy, and I'm like, really? You want me, the chick from the trailer park, raised with no shoes and bicycles with flats, to be in, you know what I mean? It's like, shit, yeah, I'll do that, So I've been in the Academy since 1990. Actually, it was about that time, too, that I was in the DGA, because when I did Wayne's World, I had to join the DGA. But when was the push to get it's 7% of women in the Directors Guild. Did that ever change? I don't think so.
No.
Okay, so what's the big push? There's no big push.
Well, there was a push back then to have a big diversity program, but then they included men of color in the diversity push, so then all the jobs went to men.
Right. Yeah.
And now there's a big push. But how'd you get the Wayne's World job?
I got it because I think Lorne felt guilty for never letting me do any of the shorts on Saturday Night Live that he said I could do. That's one reason. And the other reason, I had just done The Decline Part 2, which was, about heavy metal, and Wayne and Garth thought they were headbangers. They still to this day think that. Anyway, and so I think because of those two, I swear to God, man, I must have gone back for meetings with the Paramount executives 8 times or something to get that job. It was so demeaning. I mean, I was sitting in the hall. One time I sat in the hallway at Paramount for like 2 hours, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. I can't stand this. This is like, it makes you feel like a piece of crap to just be sitting there.
They made you wait for 2 hours?
Yeah. And then the secretary comes out and she goes, I'm sorry, they're not going to be able to make the meeting. And I walked out of there and I thought, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm not going to do this anymore. I mean, it's too hard on my self-respect, It's not even ego. Painful. Yeah. And then I went back for yet another meeting and got the gig. So, yeah. And it changed my life, Yeah. Nobody thought, it wasn't like they were giving me some big important film. Okay. It wasn't like, here, go do.
It wasn't Schindler's List.
It wasn't Schindler's List. It wasn't Gone with the Wind Part 2. It was Wayne's World. They would give it to this, woman director because Lorne says it's kind of okay. And she just knows a little bit about the music. And, it was a dog biscuit. You know what I mean? And it was like, they didn't know that the $14 million film was going to make $200 million. They had no idea,
That worked out.
Isn't that freaky? Yeah. I mean, I still am amazed by it. You know?
Are you a success?
No. Do I feel like I'm a success?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? The only thing I think I feel like I'm a success at is overcoming my anger and living and learning to live in the moment. Though, if I were to think of myself as a success, I would congratulate myself for having learned those two things. But if we're talking about career and business and film and making money and having houses and driving an Escalade and shit like that, that's not success to me.
I love that you said getting over anger and living in the moment. Like, that's everything.
Oh, yeah.
How'd you do that?
I think a lot of soul searching and a lot of pain that came from this business. See, whenever something bad happens, you really have to just look at what can I learn from this and how can I switch it around and make it good. So many bad things have happened to me in my life. I mean, there's been countless, endless numbers of job rejections and everything else. But then there's been, personal family tragedies and things like that, and I think, I don't know, just coming to terms with the difficulties in life. That's what's most important. All this other crap. And I laugh actually at these people. I really laugh. It's hilarious to me that, I do a lot of public speaking. I tell people the money doesn't make any difference. The status doesn't make any difference. What you wear, what your house looks like, what your car looks like. It doesn't make any difference. And then they laugh and they go, well, give me some and let me try it. That's the answer, And I know people that have all that stuff. And their life's just a mess. They're not happy. They're in India. These people that I know made this awesome documentary, and it's called Naked in Ashes, okay? And it's about the yogis in India that believe that since we are in this, what should I say, this life, which will transition into another life in reincarnation, all the material crap doesn't matter. So what they do is they're naked. They don't even have any clothes. But when they burn the bodies, I'm getting heavy here, sorry. But when they burn the bodies and put them on the Ganges River on rafts and let them burn, then someplace they land and there's a bunch of ashes. And so the yogis go and they roll around in the ashes. And there are these guys in India walking around. Well, some of them wear a diaper or something, but not diaper, but
loincloth.
A loincloth, thank you. But mostly they're just covered in ashes, and they think and they believe truly that's all they need. And certain people give them food, but I think that too. I think, in the big picture, really,
yeah.
What's important? It's like, anyway.
How did it occur to you to get out of the trailer park?
Oh, to get out of the trailer park?
Yeah.
Well, my mom married a sailor, and they somehow gathered enough money to buy a little house, a little 2-bedroom house in a housing project out in Westminster, California. Mm. So my mom actually got us out of the trailer park. She worked in a tile factory sorting the colors of the tile in the daytime. And then she would come home and make us 4 kids dinner. And then she would go out and work in a bar at night as a bartender. So she worked 2 8-hour jobs a day.
God.
Yeah. And it just reminded me of some point I was going to make a while ago, which was, these kids that go, how'd you do it, Penelope? It's like, don't come and bellyache to me, because they do a lot. They whine a lot. I don't have what I want. I'm not a director. I'm 25 years old, and I'm not a director yet. Oh, my God. And I go, why don't you come back when you're 45? Because that's when I ever made enough money to stay ahead in life. Mm. I was borrowing money from my sister before I did Wayne's World, And anyway, so I got out of the trailer park because we got this shitty little house in Westminster. And I got out of Westminster because I made a trip to Hollywood and met a few people and decided to move to Hollywood, and go to school at UCLA.
Yeah. So you saw a different life was possible.
Yeah, I think I mostly work on instinct, and instinctively, I like it, kind of like it here, you know what I mean?
I'll stay here for a minute.
I'll stay here for a while, yeah.
Are you a badass?
I'm pretty badass.
I know, I feel so stupid asking you that, because of course you're a badass.
No, you know what's funny? Because I just got invited to some film festival it's kind of a, like a guy wouldn't like to hear that a woman is badass, but I don't care. But I just got invited to a film festival in Chicago, and they said, we want to give you the Badass Award.
I love it.
I said, okay, well, we can talk about that. But I actually pride myself. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My mom was never around. I was the one that ran the family. Mm. And you can't be a pussy if you're going to run a family, And so I had to be a badass. And if I wasn't a badass, my mom kicked the shit out of me. She was a badass. I got scars on my body. It's like, oh, you left your brother Andy out in the road and a motorcycle came by and almost ran over him. Bam! It's like, okay, I'll never do that again.
Jeez.
Oh, no, I got scars. I'm not kidding. But, I think I'm a badass, and it's okay. I think that's probably one reason I never ended up with a guy when I was younger. I met my boyfriend now, like I said, 18 years ago. I was 50 or so, and he was, oh my God, 30. But he's more of a badass than me, because he lived on the street for, I'm 70 now and he's 50, yeah.
Where'd you meet him?
Well, I was doing the Decline Part 3, and he was one of those gutter punks, that I focused on in Part 3, and he had been out on the street squatting in, wherever, living out, for about 10 years before we got together. Yeah, I met him on that film. Yeah.
Was he on the street when you met him?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you go from meeting the guy on the street to that's my boyfriend?
Well, I think it's the subject of a book I'm probably going to write, but the fact of the matter is that when I filmed him, you know, is that little moment of spark when you look at some guy and you go, there's something going on there. And then I went, Jesus Christ, Penelope, what are you doing? And it's like, you know who you are? You're looking at some homeless dude and kind of flirting. What's going on here, you know? After I did the movie, I was driving down Melrose because a friend of mine was having one of those AA birthdays. And I had a cake on the seat in the front I was going to bring. And I saw him sitting on a bus bench. So I pulled over and I went, hey, weren't you in the Decline movie? And he said, hey, Penelope, I've been looking for you. I'm like, oh, well, cool. Hop in the car, go to an AA meeting with me and give my friend the cake. So
it's after the movie was over?
Yeah, it was like 6 months or so after it was over.
Okay, tell me more. Don't leave anything out.
Oh, you're funny. No, and so anyway, got in a car and we went to the AA meeting. It was weird because Eugene from the first Decline happened to be at that meeting. I hadn't seen him in 20 years. And so after the meeting, I took my boyfriend, I took Sin and Eugene out to Antonio's Mexican restaurant. Yeah. But you see, I was with him for a long time before I understood him. He is the most unusual, complicated person I've ever known in my life. And he's extremely like genius level intelligence. He takes a computer apart and puts it back together and, you know, starts from scratch and does this and does that. And, you know, he's just really, really, like I said, he gets every question on, he's like an encyclopedia. But he's diagnosed as schizophrenic. And he's, you know, if you saw that movie, A Beautiful Mind, with Russell Crowe about John Nash, he has a lot of that sort of going on, you know.
Yeah.
Like I came home one time and he had written on the bathroom wall, he was on a chair, and he had a magic marker. I had a nice house, okay? So he had written all over, like the crazy writing you saw in that Beautiful Mind movie, all over the walls in my bathroom. Yeah.
What did it say?
Didn't say nothing. It was all these symbols that don't mean anything to anyone but him. But about 10 years into our relationship, I finally figured out the guy's nuts, okay? And very interesting, very smart, very sweet, very kind, very loving, but he's crazy.
Did you do something?
No. He went back to visit his parents he was adopted. His mom's Jewish and his dad's Japanese. He's Japanese. My boyfriend's Japanese. And he went back there and got in trouble and went to Manhattan Psychiatric Center and got treated and got prescribed the right antipsychotic medication. And he's been on it all this time. And, you know.
So that sorted him out.
Sorted him out for the most part. And he just spent another 2-year stint, but he's back now.
So interesting.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's here's the thing. You can't choose who you fall in love with. I mean, I was at that point, you know, I had done Wayne's World, I had done all these studio movies, I owned 6 houses. I could probably be, you know, driving around with the fancy Beverly Hills people. You know, I know I could have, and I did that a little bit, but it's disgusting, and I don't do it anymore. But you know, to have him, you know, you can't help who you fall in love with.
Yeah.
I fell in love with a flat out, you know, grungy, dirty, homeless dude. I mean, like they say, like you see laying on a bus bench, you know, one of those guys. Because the illness, and if I were to go out and carry any kind of flags, it would be to try to help the mentally ill because I understand it so well. The illness makes them just kind of crash out at the wrong time in the wrong place, you know. But anyway, yeah, that's my love.
I love it.
Yeah.
What's the next step for you in your career?
I don't know. I went to meet with this book publisher in New York. I guess at this point in your life, you're supposed to write a story before you die or some shit.
Oh, you for sure need to write a story. I'll tell you that right now.
I got a few books in me, you know. But people always go, well, you know, don't you care about your legacy and you want to, you want to make sure that when you're dead, that everybody remembers you and gives you the respect that you need and all that. And I'm like, no.
You're like, blah, blah, blah.
I don't really care about my legacy. I don't. It doesn't matter, you know? I mean, look at the big picture. Look at the universe. Does it really matter what Penelope Spheeris' legacy is? Hell no. Doesn't matter what any of these people's legacy are, you know? I mean, we went to the 9/11 memorial, me and my grandson, in New York, and all the names were written there at the fountains, and it's like, wow, that's awesome, man, that they did this for these people. It's so beautiful. It's just like, cry. You stand there and cry. Painful. And then I thought, do I want to have a place where people could go when I'm dead and go, oh, Penelope Spheeris' ashes are right there? And I'm like, no, I don't.
Which to me is like why you should write your book.
Well, the only reason I would write the books, and there's a couple different ones, is if my painful experiences could be of any help to anybody else. You know, that's why to do it.
It's the humanity of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the humanity.
Oh, the humanity.
The fucking Hindenburg coming down. Yeah.
What would you tell young people coming up right now, wanting to be in this business?
Well, think hard about it and make sure you're ready for the rejection, and do it mostly because you care about the subject matter and trying to do some good in the world, and don't do it for ego purposes, and know that, you know, it's such a long shot to have that big Hollywood legendary status, and that doesn't matter. Just doing the work matters, you know, I guess.
What do you think of the state of women in, I was going to say the business, but this week in the world?
Well, yeah. Woo. Us ladies took a big hit this week.
Oof, did we ever?
Yeah. I mean, how much more insulting could it get? You know, like maybe if a dog was running for president, you know, and the dog lost, then it would be more insulting. You know, it's like, what?
I just think poor Hillary this week.
Well,
to lose to that guy.
Well, I guess if she's going to lose to somebody, it might feel better to lose to him. But I don't know. I mean, there's so much to say about it. Okay, I'm gonna go to the positive side.
Good.
Okay, because
help me.
What happens? No, really, what happens if you look back over the last presidential regimes? You can notice that, you know, when we had, when we had Nixon, the hippies were born. Okay. When we had Reagan, the punks were born. You know, the artist, the liberal left fires up when something like this happens. Okay. And it spurs creativity. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's how I look at it. I look at it like, actually before the decision came down, I told my grandson, I said, we're in a win-win situation. Because if she wins, you know, things will kind of go on status quo, and she knows what she's doing, and things will work. And if she loses, that radical left will fire up like you don't believe. And they got mega ammo now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
People are shaken up.
Well, when I say mega ammo, Trump talks about how he used social media to help out with his campaign. You know, you got 10, 12-year-old kids in school that are marching because they can get together with, you know, by social media. You know, the young ones have ways of letting themselves be heard. And I just think it's a uniting factor now, you know.
It's like now we will see how powerful social media is.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Well, I just want to congratulate you for doing the work that you're doing to tell her story, because so many times people don't listen to our stories, and that's really a cool idea that you have to do this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeez. You've been listening to The Other 50%. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank the amazing Penelope Spheeris for sharing her story. And thanks to Jonathan Lucas for editing, Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. And on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for added features, bios of our guests, and the merch. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter at Other50%. Thanks for listening. See you next time.